The wind swept through the golden plains of Wyoming, carrying the scent of wild sage and rain. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a honeyed glow over the ranch that stretched farther than the eye could see. Leah stood by the fence, her hands roughened by work and her heart bruised by years of being told she wasn't enough. She had come here to escape, from the whispers of a small town, from promises that turned to ashes, and from a past that refused to let her breathe. When she met Colton Hayes, she hadn't planned to stay. He was the kind of man who filled a room without saying much, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a quiet strength that drew people to him. He'd lost his wife years ago, and though everyone said he'd never love again, Leah could see something flicker in him whenever she spoke, something he tried to bury beneath work and duty. She arrived at his ranch to cook and help with the horses, never expecting him to notice her. But Colton noticed everything, the way she hummed softly when she cooked, the way her hair fell loose under the sunlight, and the sadness she carried like a second skin. He'd catch her watching the horizon at dusk, lost in thought, and sometimes, he'd stand beside her, saying nothing at all. It started with small things, a cup of coffee shared before sunrise, a quiet ride through the fields, a hand that lingered just a little too long when passing the reins. Leah felt it too, the pull between them, though she tried to fight it. Don't, she'd whisper to herself, don't fall for what you can't keep. But Colton wasn't a man who gave up easily. He'd spent years rebuilding his ranch from dust after drought and loss. Loving Leah didn't scare him, losing her did. One evening, as a storm gathered in the distance, he found her packing her few things in silence. I shouldn't be here, she said, not looking up. You don't know what you're asking for, Colton. I'm not the kind of woman a man builds a life with. He stepped closer, his boots echoing softly against the wooden floor. And what kind of woman are you, Leah? The kind men regret choosing, she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. The kind that brings trouble, that never fits in, that leaves before she's left. For a long moment, all he did was look at her, really look. Then he smiled, slow and sure, the kind of smile that disarmed every defense she'd built. Then I already regret one thing, he said quietly. Waiting this long to choose you. Her breath hitched. She wanted to turn away, to save him from herself, but the way he said it, with conviction that reached down into her soul, stopped her cold. You don't know me, she said weakly. I know you're strong, he said, stepping closer. I know you've been hurt and you keep standing. I know you make this place feel alive again. That's enough for me. The storm broke then, lightning slashing across the sky, thunder shaking the windows, but neither moved. Colton reached out, his hand rough and warm against her cheek. You think you're broken, he murmured, but I see the way you care, the way you work, the way you love, even when you're scared of it. You're not broken, Leah. You're the reason I remember what it means to live. Tears spilled freely now, mingling with the rain that began to pour. She trembled as he drew her close, the thunder rolling like a heartbeat in the distance. For the first time in years, Leah didn't pull away. She didn't run. The next morning, the storm had passed. The ranch glistened with dew, and sunlight broke through the clouds, warm and golden. Colton was already outside, fixing the fence the wind had knocked down, his hat tilted low, his movements steady. Leah stood at the porch, watching him, the man who'd seen through her walls, who hadn't turned away from her scars. She stepped down, walking toward him slowly, the smell of wet earth rising around her. When he looked up, their eyes met, and something wordless passed between them, a promise neither needed to say out loud. Leah had spent her life believing she was too much and not enough all at once. But here, in the middle of open fields and quiet mornings, she began to believe that maybe love didn't need perfection, just courage. And as Colton reached out to take her hand, Leah finally stopped whispering reasons to leave. She just breathed, and stayed. The morning air was cool, brushing against Leah's skin like a quiet reminder that this land never really slept. The distant sound of cattle lowing mixed with the rhythmic creak of the barn door, and somewhere beyond the hills, a hawk cried into the endless blue. Colton had already been up for hours, as he always was. Ranch life didn't wait for anyone. But something felt different this morning, lighter somehow. Leah stood on the porch, the scent of coffee drifting from the mug in her hands. Her heart was still unsure, still trembling at the edges of what last night meant. The storm had raged, both outside and inside her, but Colton's words kept echoing in her chest. I already regret waiting this long. No one had ever chosen her, not truly. Not without condition, not without expecting her to change into someone easier to love. Colton hadn't asked her to be anyone but herself. That alone scared her more than anything. By the time she reached the barn, Colton was brushing down one of the horses, his shirt clinging to his back with sweat, muscles flexing under the strain of work. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and a soft smile curved his lips. "Morning," he said simply. "Morning," she replied, setting her mug down on the fence post. "You've been up long." "Since before dawn," he said, eyes twinkling. "Old habits. Besides, the herd doesn't feed itself." Leah laughed lightly, a sound he hadn't heard from her before, soft, unguarded. "You say that like you don't mind." He shrugged. "I don't. The work keeps me steady." He glanced at her, brushing a hand across the horse's mane. "You planning on running off again?" Her eyes dropped to the straw-covered floor. "I was," she admitted quietly. "But something about this place, about you, makes it hard." He leaned on the stall door, watching her. "You're free to go anytime, Leah. But I hope you don't." "I don't know how to stay," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "Every time I've tried, something goes wrong. I hurt people without meaning to. Or they hurt me first." Colton stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating off him. "Then maybe it's time to learn what staying feels like," he said. "We'll both figure it out." She wanted to believe him. God, she did. But trust was a muscle she hadn't used in years. The days that followed unfolded like a slow sunrise. Leah started taking on more chores, feeding the hens, mending fences, helping with the accounts when Colton's handwriting turned into near illegible scrawls. At first, she kept her distance, her guard never fully lowered. But little by little, she began to see pieces of the man behind the quiet confidence. Colton loved the land like it was family. He knew every inch of it, every tree that bent under the wind, every creek that shimmered after the rain. He'd built this ranch from nothing after his father's passing, and even after losing his wife, he refused to abandon it. Sometimes Leah would catch him staring at the horizon at sunset, the light catching the scar on his cheek, and she'd wonder what memories haunted him there. But she never asked, not yet. He gave her space, and she gave him silence in return. One evening, as they sat outside by the fire pit, the air heavy with the scent of mesquite smoke, he handed her a cup of coffee. The flames flickered between them, reflecting in his eyes. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. "Miss what?" "Wherever you came from." Leah looked into the fire. "Sometimes. But most of the time, I just miss who I was before everything broke." He nodded slowly, his jaw tightening. "I know that feeling." "You?" she asked, surprised. He stared into the flames, his voice low. "When my wife died, it felt like the world stopped making sense. I tried to move on, but the guilt wouldn't let me. Felt like breathing was a sin." She didn't know what to say. So she reached out, her fingers brushing against his. The contact was brief but electric, grounding them both in a moment that didn't need words. "Maybe that's what healing is," she said softly. "Finding someone who helps you breathe again." He turned to look at her, and for a long moment, neither moved. The night stretched on, the stars watching silently as two broken people tried to remember what hope felt like. Weeks turned into months. The rhythm of ranch life became their shared language, quiet mornings, long days, soft laughter in between. Leah began to hum again when she cooked, the melody light and full of something she hadn't felt in years, peace. The townsfolk started to notice, too. They saw the way Colton's eyes followed her when she walked through the feed store, the way his hand brushed hers when they passed each other tools, the way she smiled, really smiled, when she looked at him. But not everyone approved. Whispers began again, just like they always did wherever Leah went. "She's just here for the money. She's got a past, that one. Heard she ran from her last job. Poor Colton, man doesn't see what's coming." Leah tried to ignore it. But the words cut deep, reopening wounds she thought had healed. She'd been running from judgment her whole life, and now it had caught up again. One evening, she found herself sitting by the creek behind the ranch, knees pulled to her chest, tears slipping silently down her face. The water shimmered with moonlight, and she whispered to the dark, "Why can't they just let me live?" Colton found her there, hours later. He didn't speak at first, just sat beside her, the way he always did when words weren't enough. "You heard them, didn't you?" she asked finally. He nodded once. I should leave before I ruin things for you, she said, her voice trembling. He turned to her, his eyes steady and fierce. Leah, I don't care what people say. You think I haven't heard rumors before. You think I built my life worrying about small minds. But they'll think. Let them think, he interrupted. The only thing that matters to me is what you think. Do you want to stay? She looked at him, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. I do. But I don't know if I deserve it. He reached over, taking her hand, pressing it against his chest. You don't have to deserve it, Leah. Just choose it. That night, she didn't sleep much. His words kept circling in her mind. Just choose it. Maybe life wasn't about waiting to feel worthy. Maybe it was about choosing to stand still even when the world tried to push you away. The next morning, she made breakfast early, her hands trembling as she cooked. When Colton walked in, she looked up and smiled nervously. I'm staying, she said simply. He grinned, wide and genuine. Good. From that day on, Leah stopped flinching when people whispered. She worked harder than ever, her laughter ringing through the fields, her presence transforming the ranch into something alive again. Colton would sometimes watch her from afar, the way her hair caught the wind, the way she'd talk softly to the horses, and he'd think about how strange it was that healing had found him when he least expected it. One afternoon, after a long day branding calves, he came into the kitchen to find Leah sitting by the table, reading a worn letter. Her eyes were distant, her fingers tracing the edges of the paper. Everything all right? He asked. She looked up, blinking back tears. It's from my brother, she said quietly. I haven't heard from him in years. He's been sick, and he wants me to come back home. Colton froze, trying to hide the ache that suddenly flared in his chest. You should go, he said softly. He's your family. I don't know if I can, she whispered. That place, it broke me. And if I go back, I don't know if I'll ever make it back here. He walked over, kneeling beside her chair. Leah, you don't owe me anything. You do what you have to do. If you need to go, I'll be here when you come back. Her eyes filled with tears again. You'd wait. He smiled faintly. I already waited once. I can do it again. She left 2 days later, the morning mist still clinging to the fields. Colton stood by the fence, watching her ride away. Every hoofbeat faded like a heartbeat slowing down, and then she was gone. Days turned into weeks. The ranch felt emptier, quieter. He went through the motions, feeding, mending, fixing, but without her laughter, everything seemed colorless. Then, one evening, as the sun melted into the hills, he heard the faint sound of a horse approaching. He looked up, heart racing, and saw her, dusty, tired, but smiling. She dismounted, her eyes shining with tears. He's gone, she said softly. But before he passed, he told me to stop running from the good things. Colton swallowed hard, stepping closer. You came back. I told him I had someone waiting for me, she said, voice trembling. Someone who saw me when no one else did. He reached out, cupping her face. Welcome home, Leah. And for the first time in years, she truly believed she was. That night, they stood by the fence again, the stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her, breathing her in, the scent of dust, sweat, and everything real. I used to think love was something that destroyed people, she whispered. So did I, he said quietly. Until you showed up. She laughed softly, tilting her face toward him. Guess we were both wrong. The night stretched on around them, the crickets singing, the breeze warm against their skin. And though neither said it out loud, both knew that somehow, through pain and fear and distance, they had finally found the place they were meant to belong. And for the rest of their days, they chose each other, again and again, in the quiet, simple ways that mattered most.